So these two guys are in the jungles of Peru working for some oil company when they stumble across a cacao bean that's been extinct for over 100 years. Without any chocolate knowledge whatsoever, well, no more than you and I, they decided to start a premium chocolate brand, and Fortunato Chocolate was born. It even caught the attention of the late and great celebrity chef, Anthony Bourdain. It's a Willy Wonka-esque episode 625 of the 13-year-old award-winning small business big marketing podcast.
Well, I said, welcome to a small business marketing show where successful small business owners share their souls to take your marketing straight to the lead. Now, here's your host, Mr. Timbo Reid.
And welcome back to your weekly dose of rich, creamy, chocolatey marketing. Can't you just taste it? I'm your host, Timbo Reid, and I have an insatiable curiosity for uncovering marketing ideas that help businesses just like yours to grow. I do that through weekly conversations with successful business founders who have walked these hallowed halls before us. You, infinitely more importantly, are a motivated business owner ready to crank out some great marketing to build that beautiful business of yours into the empire it absolutely deserves to be. As per usual, team, there is marketing GOLD dripping from the ceiling over here at Small Business Big Marketing's HQ. So let's get stuck right in. Have you ever met one of those business owners who's mastered the art of wowing their precious customers? They're so freaking inspiring. One that comes to mind is Joshua Nichols from episode 433. He showed us how his 21-step customer manifesto was a game changer for his electrical franchise. Well, I've got some good news for those of you who aspire to be a wow ninja, just like Joshua, because another past guest, John Dwyer, and myself will be hosting a free webinar in which we share our top proven ways for you to make your customers' day and have them talk about your business to others in a very positive light. I'll show you how to create a customer manifesto. My super simple way to get video testimonials I will reveal, as well as a cool app I use to thank new clients of mine within minutes, sometimes seconds of them buying from me. John will show you how to build a list of prospects and then communicate with them in an authentic way that moves them forward along your purchase cycle. Plus, he'll share the proven #1 customer incentive in the world. You'll even have a chance to purchase it, and we'll show you how to implement immediately for great results. The webinar is free. There's 100 seats per webinar, and you can choose between Thursday, March 9 at midday or 7 p.m. on the same day, Australian Eastern Standard Time. Both webinars, exactly the same content. We're just catering for different time zones. Grab your seat at salesbooster.com.au/Timbo. That's salesbooster.com.au/Timbo. You'll find the link in the show notes. And it's great to see more of you benefiting from my new membership. A very warm welcome to my new marketing GOLD member, Drew Blackman of krgsdoors.com.au. No matter where you are in Australia, if you need commercial grade doors of any type, I would check them out. KRGS Doors. And a very warm welcome also to my new Silverama members, Shane Moyle and Daniel Monday. In fact, the same day Daniel became a member, he sent me a note saying he'd already got an idea from one of my posts inside the membership that has helped him identify what's annoying his customers. Oh, always a tough question to ask. He went on to create an anonymous one-question survey to make it even easier for them to vent. It's a little post I did put in the membership about exactly that. And although confronting, it's kind of nice to know whether we're pissing people off and what we can do about it. Otherwise, it just goes not unnoticed, unspoken. And my one-on-one coaching sessions started this week for my gold members. So good to get to know their businesses and help them get clarity around their marketing. I'd love to be welcoming you into my new membership and mentioning you in an upcoming episode. Membership starts at like $8.50 per month, and that is tax deductible. And depending on what tier you choose, you get marketing idea worksheets, productivity tool reviews, an invite to my Ask Me Anything monthly webinar, one-on-one coaching, behind-the-scenes photos and videos, and plenty more. It is a very large amount of marketing value. You can join over at Patreon, that's Patreon, nfinelli.com/marketing podcast. Patreon.com/marketing podcast. I'll see you on the inside. Today's chat is all about the business of chocolate. It's set deep in the Peruvian jungle, involves an extinct cacao bean that's no longer extinct, two half-brothers with the same mother but different fathers, world-class chocolate maker Max Felchlin, a Swiss chocolate lab, the late and great celebrity chef Anthony Bourdain, two Peruvian women who live outside of Washington, two chocolate shops, and an online store. You can't make this stuff up. It's pretty much Willy Wonka meets Indiana Jones, right? Now, out of this adventurous tale was born Fortunato Chocolate, and the owners are Adam and Brian, the two half-brothers mentioned earlier. Without any further ado, here they are rating on a scale of 1 to 10 exactly how much they love what they've got themselves into.
Oh, for me, it's a stone cold 10. But, I get to do the sales and marketing, so that's a lot more fun. Brian has to do the ops stuff. So, Brian.
I'm going to give it a 7.5. I have to deal with the customer service. And so I deal with a lot of people wanting to know where their packages are. And I have to deal with logistics in Peru, which is a chaotic situation.
Yeah,
so
okay.
Those two I don't love, but overall we love it.
But, Brian, let me ask you this, because we do retail and e-commerce. And on Saturday mornings, we work an owner shift in our retail shop. And that's just us together for about 4 hours face-to-face, hanging out with customers, seeing little kids with hot chocolate all over their face and stuff. How much do you love that, bro?
That's a 10. That's absolutely.
That's got to be rewarding.
Yeah.
Well,
that's got to be rewarding.
Like we're talking business, like a lot of business owners don't realize that the thing that you do is one skill, and then business, just like running a business, is another thing, which requires just monotonous, repetitive work sometimes.
Very true.
And that's, that's never going to be the funnest thing in the world.
There is no one scale. I get it. I totally get it. But boy, oh boy, look, just doing the research on you guys and looking at your website, reading the story, you're clearly making a difference. You're clearly creating, hey, you're selling chocolate, boys. Enjoy it.
I had this discussion with a friend of mine the other day. There's nothing licit or illicit that you can sell that has higher recognition and puts a smile on people's faces easier. There's nothing.
100%. In fact, my favorite film of all time, I think probably without exception, would be Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. I just love it.
The first one or the second one?
Great question, Adam. And normally I just go second. Seconds never work. But I thought Depp did an awesome job, and I think they were both particularly dark humour and beautifully shot. So I actually can't choose. What about you?
Where do you stand, bro? Where do you stand on that one, Brian?
I'm going to actually go ahead and agree with Tim on this one.
You guys are killing me. Let's go to the next question, Tim. You guys are killing me. What are you talking about?
This has been the problem with Adam for years. He's got poor taste in movies. What can I tell you? Business-wise, he's all right, but his taste in movies is poor.
Gene Wilder is one of the funniest human beings
he's pretty
ever
good
in the history of the world. Way funnier and more compelling than Johnny Depp. But I guess we're splitting hairs.
Okay, let's get serious, because that's why people tune in, fellas. They tune in to learn. We're not reviewing films. Now, I want to explore how Fortunato Chocolate came to be. Clearly, it's an impressive story because the New York Times chose to cover it. So, take us back. Brian, you're the bloke who goes in and out of Peru. Are you the discoverer of the amazing bean? Where do we start?
Yes, we can take it all the way back to Peru, all the way back to 15 years ago, and we were looking for a project. Our original project that took us to Peru had ended, and we were looking around for.
What was that?
That was a mining supply project.
Of course, it was.
But quickly tell them how we got into the mining supply project. Let me just say this real quick. I'm sorry to cut it, because it's really interesting. I came home from college, I think maybe my sophomore year, and my dad and my brother had started this business together, but they didn't know what they were going to be selling. And I came home and they were all excited. Like, come in here, Adam, we want to show you something. So what is it? I came in, they sat me down on the sofa. They put in a VHS, remember VHS tapes?
Yeah.
They put it in, and it's this guy giving a presentation on air filter cleaners.
That's right.
So, and I watch the whole presentation. I'm like, what in the hell are you guys doing? What are you talking about? He's like, we're going to be selling air filter cleaners to mines. Tell them about the air filter cleaners first.
Yeah. So the way we started the business was But Adam's father, my stepfather, we share the same mother. We have two different fathers, and we decided to start a business. We'd worked together in the nonprofit world before, and we decided to start a for-profit business. And we started the business without a product to sell, and we went through this incredibly rigorous 18-month process of qualifying and identifying products that we wanted to sell. There came out to be 8 or 9 different finalists, and the one that we decided that we wanted to go to market to was this really innovative and really the financial model worked, an air filter cleaner. So we beat the bushes and found some mining contacts among our extended networks, and we went to various mines, but we ended up at a mine in Peru trying to sell them this air filter cleaner.
What was good about the air filter cleaner?
It actually improved the function of air filtering on the second, third, and fourth uses, and it allowed them to save a bunch of money and in more than one way. Okay, it's environmentally, but when we got there, they said, "Yeah, the air filter, that sounds great. We don't know anything about that, but would you be interested?"
They rejected it after 18 months.
That wasn't even why they brought us. They said, "We need a company that can bring things that we need." This was an American manager in a Peruvian mine who had recently got there, and he said, "We need things brought into Peru that aren't in Peru." And it has to be done a certain way because they had financing from the World Bank, from the IFC, the International Finance Corporation. And it had to be sold to the mine by a Peruvian company from that state. And so they needed someone to provide bridge financing and logistics and also train this company up to provide these services after the first 4-year run of the contract, when we would presumably have them trained up and ready to compete on their own. So we abandoned the filter cleaner and said, "Yes, that sounds very interesting."
Yeah, we just said, my dad, who I call him like the riverboat gambler. He's like you remember the movie The Maverick? Now we're going back to movies.
I get it.
Yeah,
I totally get it.
Yeah, he shows up. He's just playing a hand, and they offered him some other completely different deal, and he just took it.
Hustler.
He's totally a hustler.
He's a hustler. We're all hustlers, to be honest. And, I was, my main impetus for this was make some money and have some adventures.
Hold that thought. I want to get. We're slowly finding our way to discovering a famous cacao bean, but the hustler thing, I'm interested in that because clearly in the lead up, you've got all these business. You start a business, you don't know what you're selling. You've got your 9 finalists, just going through the process. The hustler mentality.
And drawing no salary, by the way. I was attending bar at night.
Brian quit a good job and became a bartender at night. Yeah. And I got kicked out of college for drinking too much too. So we're just like
at the same time.
Yeah, we're just like regular dudes who
clearly
just decided to take a crack at it, you know.
Tell me, just explain to me the hustler mentality. It's a really admirable trait. It can be very distracting to the person with it because you can be distracted by the next bright shiny object, but you're always looking for a hack or a new idea or a new opportunity. Do you bring that with you into Fortunato?
More now than ever before. I would say more now than ever. Before, when we first got into the chocolate business, we were just fighting to survive. So we were really grabbing at straws. I mean, there was no hacking. There was, this is the only thing we can do right now. So we have to go ahead and do it. But I'd say both Brian and I were raised by entrepreneurial parents. And basically, I think the message we both got growing up was you're allowed to do whatever you want.
The expectation is work hard, make your own way. Work hard, make your own way, and we're not a family of engineers who take a job with a big company and work there for 40 years.
Question for Brian. Have you always found it hard to get a word in with Brother Adam, or is it just in this interview that's particularly testing?
Well, it's sort of like trying to control spending for your better half. Sometimes you capitulate or move on.
Capitulate or move on.
I believe if you go back and analyze the word count, you'll find that Brian's talking more than me. But we have to do that after the fact. But
Adam, I will do that. But
that was a wordy way of leading into that, though, Adam. You may have
now, Brian. So far, we've gone no air filters aren't going to work. But we'd love you to bring stuff into Peru. We need you to do it a certain way because we've got funding by the World Bank.
So we analyzed the model. It looked good. They introduced us to 2 companies who were candidates to work with us, local companies there in Cajamarca, Peru. And by the way, this wasn't taking place in Lima, Peru. This was taking place in Cajamarca, Cajamarca, Peru, which sits at almost 3,000 meters above sea level in the high Andes Mountains. A very distinct and unique place. So long story short, we did that project and we started bringing in 3,000 SKUs of MRO, maintenance, repair, and operational parts, and also high pressure hydraulic hoses and fittings to the world's second or third at the time biggest gold mine. Selling them to a local company who resold them to the mine under a complicated financial jujitsu. And I began working at spending 3 weeks on and 5 weeks off in Peru, most of my time up at the mine, which is at almost 4,000 meters, running a really, really cold parts warehouse.
And this is a couple of boys from Seattle who have got no experience in logistics, doing business in Peru. You're working in bars at night. It's impressive stuff.
At this time, Adam was not involved. This was Adam's father, Dan, and myself. And we're brothers, but I'm significantly older.
And we're originally from San Diego.
Than Adam.
We were in San Diego at the time.
At what point, Brian, did you trip over this famous cacao bean? And is that the right pronunciation, cacao?
Yes, absolutely, yeah. Cacao. That project ran its course, and the companies that we worked with proceeded to go ahead and get the next round of contracts from the mine, and we found ourselves in that town at loose ends, and I found myself in love with and married to a girl from that town, and we tried some other projects that for various reasons didn't work. And long story short, I found myself in that town teaching English to mine guys who wanted to get jobs in Australia.
Really?
So I found myself with a brand new baby, savings blown, no particular project, teaching English, and wondering what to do. Still in business with Adam's dad. And the mine asked us, because of the strange terms of the mine's financing, they need to get fresh food supplies from that state. But there aren't any fresh food that grow at that altitude in the Andes, so it had to come from another part of the state. They asked us to go on a scouting trip to find fresh products like eggs, bananas, things like that. So we went. And we were looking at banana farms and thinking about striking deals with banana farmers to send fresh products to the mine's catering contractor. And we saw these strange trees growing underneath the banana trees. And I asked a farmer, "What is that?" He said, "Well, that's chocolate." And I said, "I don't think so. Chocolate's something that you buy in a store." And he said, No, that's what they make chocolate from. That was the first time in my life that I'd ever seen a cacao tree. Had no intention of getting into the cacao business, didn't even know what cacao was.
Clearly, at this point, you don't know it's a special bean.
We didn't know it was a special bean, but we had an idea. We opened some up. We talked to them about it. We completed the task of hooking up the catering contractor with the fresh products. But Dan, Adam's father, who is also a visionary, something I am not, couldn't get cacao out of his mind. And then the state government there in Cajamarca asked me to participate in a forum where they were going to choose 4 products that were going to be their export focus products to try to generate income from exports. And the 4 products didn't have cacao on the list. Cacao was 5th. It was off the list. But to me, after attending that forum, it was the clear number 1. So Adam's father and I put our heads together and said, how can we make a project out of this cacao thing? What's there? And we just started to work it and research it the same way we did before to find the products that we wanted to market and represent.
In time, Brian, you're living frugally in the jungles, or not even the jungles, you're 4,000 meters up. You're just living...
I'm 3,000 meters up in Cajamarca, Peru. Yes, frugal is the word.
Cash flow is not an issue. You've made a bit of dough from the previous projects, but you are sort of...
Cash flow was an issue.
It was an issue.
Yes, cash flow was an issue. I needed a better gig than teaching English immediately, and we looked into it. And Adam's dad, Dan, our third partner, was absolutely sure there was something there. So we started working on it.
Adam, do you remember this time when your old man is getting totally excited?
So at that time, I also went down to Peru to work on the mining business. I also married a Peruvian woman while I was down there.
What is it with you blokes?
Yeah. Hey, you been to Peru?
Have you met these ladies?
Okay.
I guarantee you go to Peru, you're getting married to somebody.
Nobody escapes.
Nobody escapes. So I was going to be coming back to Peru once I graduated college. I got married while I was a junior in college. And I was going to move. I'm still married to the same woman. I was going to move back down and work for this mining business, but by the time I was going to come back, it didn't exist anymore. So I worked as an accountant, but I was following what was going on. So and I was also doing the accounting for the business. So we made some money for 3 years doing this mining business. So there was like some money in the bank. But Dan, our third partner, didn't really want to spend it without having another project lined up. So that's why Brian was teaching English. But then once Brian went out to the jungle in this really like remote corner of the state that we were operating in, and saw that there was a business, Dan agreed to open up the bank and start paying Brian a little bit of salary.
The princely sum of $1,500 a month.
$1,500 a month.
Yes.
Yep. It was $1,500 a month.
A lot of dough in Peru, Brian. That's going to buy you a lot of bananas.
It was enough to keep us in bananas for as long as we had to. Yes, that's right.
So I was following along, and so Brian moved out to this city to start Brian Cacao. This is before we did the genetic testing that told us it was something special. To just learn how to do the post-harvest processing of cocoa beans. To make a really good, I know we're not going to like go too much in chocolate, but to make really good chocolate, you have to know what to do with cacao after it's been cut off the tree.
Before the genetic testing, the reason we thought this cacao was special was because it has white beans in it. And most cacao doesn't have white beans. They're known as porcelana. And when we started doing research on white beans and cacao, what we found was this stuff that comes from Venezuela called porcelana that has an incredibly high market value. This ends up not being that, but that was what excited us about this cacao. Before we even knew the genetics, there was something special about this cacao. We knew it, but we didn't know what.
Were the local people saying, oh, hang on, this is a white bean cacao tree, it is something special? Or what made you go and get genetic testing?
The local people there had never been any investment in their sector in that town. They were in a forgotten and unexplored and uninvested in corner of the country and had no idea. They were not even fermenting their cacao, which is the most basic part of post-harvest processing. They were selling it into a multi-step, very unjust value chain that kept them eternally, extremely poor and selling this incredible cacao for a pittance.
Tell us about the moment Dr. Lyndall Mindheart rings you and explains what you have discovered. This is a bit like discovering gold.
Brian moved out to the jungle. He rented an old parking lot, and he hired a carpenter to build a bunch of rudimentary processing equipment. And for 2 years, he just lived out there, just learning how to process cacao, just spending our savings. So meanwhile, my dad and I were going to conference. We were going to Fine Chocolate Industry Association conferences, trying to get people excited about buying this cacao from us. We had no product. So you were hustling. We're out here telling people, we've got this great cacao. It's something special. You're going to love it. They're like, when can we get some? It's like, we got it. We got it. It's a year and a half because my brother's out there still trying to learn how to do it. And we were pitching this idea of white cacao. So I'm out here at these conferences like, we got this white cacao. It's going to be great. They're like, okay, what is it? What's the genetic variety of it? And we said, we don't know. It's white, but it's going to be good. We think it's going to be really good. So my dad was researching how to do genetic testing. And he ended up finding that basically the two labs in the United States that do genetic testing, there's one in Miami and there's one in Maryland. And it's done by the USDA. And so my dad called Miami. No one answered the phone. And then he called Maryland. And that's where you're talking about the geneticist, Dr. Lyndall Mindheart. He answered the phone. His secretary was on vacation. My dad's from Fort Wayne, Indiana. He's a good old Midwestern boy. Lyndall's from Iowa here in the United States. So they're good old Midwestern boys. They started talking. They're like bosom buddies. They hit it off. And Lyndall agreed to do genetic testing on trees all over this area where we were operating. So Brian went out to cacao farms and started collecting leaf samples.
By the way, Adam, I'm sure this hot Indiana and Iowa talk is going to play really well in Australia. I think the folks there are going to resonate incredibly well. Yeah.
Brian went out, he collected leaf samples, he sent them to the USDA, and then a few months later, Lyndall called my dad and said, hey, are you sitting down? And my dad said no, because he was getting dressed. He was about to go out to a dinner. So he sat down with no socks on. So this is how my dad tells me the story. He sat down with no socks on, like half of his bald head was shaven, and the other half he hadn't even shaved yet because he was getting ready. He picked up the phone, and that's when Lyndall told us, hey, this thing that you sent us was thought to have been wiped out by a disease over 100 years ago.
Right. You found a remnant population of it, but it's never been found with white beans before. You found something completely unique and distinct that hasn't been found and was never contemplated to even exist.
Yeah. And 100 years ago, that variety was considered to be one of the finest varieties of cacao in the world before it got wiped out by diseases. So, and by the time we got that announcement, we'd already been doing business in Peru for like 5 or 6 years. We'd already cycled through one project, failed a couple of other projects, started spending our savings for 2 years learning how to do the post-harvest processing. We were already all in on doing the chocolate thing before we found that out, but that was a lucky break that accelerated the project for us.
Two awkward questions. It's a great story, by the way, boys. Let's get the two awkward questions out. Maybe I'm cutting to the chase a bit. So, two awkward questions. One is, how do you personally protect the area? You've discovered something very special, and you need to keep this quiet and on the lowdown. So how do you do that? And then how do you protect your reputation as individuals by not being seen as the white man coming in to a remote area of Peru and, excuse my French, but ripping off the locals? Because that was obviously a threat to your reputation.
So it's a great question, by the way. It's almost like you've done this over 600 times with these quality of these questions.
Hey, you're my first.
The town that I lived in Cajamarca, the gold mine was owned by an American conglomerate called Newmont Mining out of Denver. And they are famous all over the world for doing everything wrong with the local population. They've got executives in jail in Indonesia. They had constant marches against them in the main square in Cajamarca, Peru. Going into this, my mantra was always, what would Newmont do? And whatever I figured out what they would do, I did the opposite. It's like a sitcom, but I literally did that. So I was always, from the very first moment of this, thinking about how I could integrate myself into that community and not come across as the white guy coming to loot them. Even despite that, for years after I showed up in that town, there were people that suspected that I was there for mining purposes,
no
to
doubt.
try to discover yes, absolutely. There were, to this day, there may very well be rumors that I'm still in it to try to exploit some kind of a gold mine. All you can do to avoid that is integrate yourself, live like the locals, hire locals, listen instead of insisting that you know what's best or which way to advance, and show through long, dogged work that you're the right kind of person to be living there with these people. So that means living in a normal house, not building something fancy. That means driving a cheap Chinese 200cc dirt bike instead of buying a Toyota Hilux pickup truck. It means sitting down to eat with every farmer who invites you to eat in their house and eating the same thing they do. It means always giving somebody a ride when they need a ride on the back of your motorcycle, or when we had a truck. It means speaking the local language, all those things.
Again, probably cutting to the chase, but you pay 10 times fair trade premium. So you are absolutely paying above the odds.
Not only that, every Sunday I had people coming to the house asking me for help with medical bills. We got hit up by the local police. But you have to spread a lot of money around when you're perceived as a successful businessman in a small jungle town like that. Everybody comes to you looking for a cut, and you have to pay it. So that's the short answer. Is it's everything, and you can't screw up on any of it.
Got it. What about protecting this find? And in fact, protecting what find? I mean, you obviously, at what point did you establish, hey, there is enough of this white bean cacao to actually scale and create a business from it? How did you know there was enough there?
Generally speaking, in our marketing, we never now we are, but in the beginning, we made a decision to never really say the name of the place where it was.
We never revealed the location. But looking back on it, the place is so remote. It's so far out there. I don't know that very many other companies would even have the guts or the ability to stay long enough and to persevere long enough. Some would say stupidity, but that's fine.
Or stupidity, or just the craziness, because Brian's a real adventurer.
You'd have to be. You'd absolutely have to be.
We never said the name of the river you have to cross to get to the project area. We never revealed it, and we made that part of our marketing. We actually, keeping it a secret became part of our marketing, part of the allure of it. But from the very beginning, I also was very honest with the Cacao Growers Association. I said to them, at some point, other people are going to want to come and do business with you because we're trying to do a good job of publicizing this, and because these beans really are phenomenal.
How do you establish there was enough, though? Because, you found one plant under a banana tree. Is it an acre of these cacao trees? Is it an entire hillside?
No, there were hundreds of farmers. So the first person I met there, and a person who's a great friend of mine, one of my very best friends to this day, is the president of the Cacao Growers Association, Don Noé.
Good networking, Brian. Good networking.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm the godfather to two of his sons, and
you're a genius.
And I stay in his house when I go down there, and we're business partners in every sense and good friends. And I just spoke with Noe today, and Noe assured me that there were hundreds of hectares of this exact variety of cacao growing in this canyon. And then when we did the genetic testing, I went to far and wide and explored the whole area, and we could see there was an ample source of this cacao. And what I told the Cacao Growers Association, I was very honest with them. I said, other companies are going to come and want to do business with you, and you're all adults and we're all adults, and we could make you sign an exclusive contract, but it wouldn't be enforceable. So rather than try to do this that way, let me just say this: when they come, hear them out. Just out of respect for me and our relationship, give me the chance to match or better their offer. But I would never tell you can't do anything. I would never try to enforce that. You have to feed your families. I think they respected that kind of honesty and forthrightness, and I think that helped to build the relationship so that when other people did come, they were willing to continue working with us.
Adam, before you jump in, do you still retain exclusivity of the entire crop or harvest or whatever you call it?
Not legally, but effectively, yes.
Effectively, yeah. Well, does legally exist?
No.
It couldn't. No. So I just want to point out about the quantities. It's the naturally occurring cacao in that zone. It grows wildly.
It's endemic to the area.
Yeah, it grows wildly all over the place. It's like blackberries here in Washington. I mean, they're all over the place.
And that's an important note because it's evolved to live in that environment. It's a much higher altitude environment than most cacao. Other cacaos don't necessarily thrive there.
It's part of what makes it so delicious. But the other thing, just from a marketing geek standpoint, I don't think it was necessarily the right marketing move. It was more my dad's decision. In retrospect, I don't think we really should have protected the name of the place because I think it actually.
Hot take, Adam. Wow.
Yeah, I
really?
think. Wow. I think.
Hey, is this breaking news, Brian?
I've never heard this before.
So as I've got more experience as a marketer, and I know this is a marketing podcast, I've come to believe really that authenticity is the most important thing. More important. So you're I know you said to Brian, hey, smart move, being the godfather of that guy. But we didn't do that as a strategy.
No, that certainly was not a business decision.
No, but I'm saying that for the listeners.
It's my unbelievably funny Aussie humor, Adam.
No, but it's good.
Believe it or not, I'm not actually a monster, Tim.
No, but it's good. But it would have been better because it's what we do now, and it works really well. It would have been better to be just open it up. And this is my opinion, and just say this is who we are, this is where we are. This is what we're doing. These are the people. Well,
okay, I'll challenge you on that because you could argue both ways. Okay, authenticity, which I sort of cringe when I hear that word in marketing. I get it. I totally get it. And it's being real. It's being yourself because everyone else is taken and, it's a good idea. However, I could argue the idea of keeping it a secret because that becomes an incredibly compelling story where I'm buying this chocolate from a place they won't even reveal where the bean's from. I mean, this is exciting stuff. This is Willy Wonka stuff now. They won't let me inside the factory because there's all
I believe that era of mystery was effective. I think that so we didn't refuse to say where. We created something called the Marañón Canyon. The Marañón is one of the two main tributaries of the Amazon River, and the river that we're on, the Rio Chinchipe, is a main tributary of the Marañón. They join a few kilometers downstream of our project area, and then the Rio Marañón goes another 2,000 kilometers before it joins with another river to become the Amazon. There is a Marañón River. It's right near where we are, but it's not the river we're on. But it's a river that you can look up and find. So we said it's in the Marañón Canyon. There's no one canyon that's called the Marañón Canyon.
But it's a mistake. But look, to go back to what you said about the word authenticity, let me just qualify what I mean by that, though. I think the authenticity thing only works if you've really got the goods. And our chocolate is delicious. It is high quality chocolate. And here's what happens. So here, yeah, beautiful. So this is my opinion. Here's what happens when you try to shroud the whole thing in a mystery. You put a black box around a lot of the stories that we would have been able to tell about the people. The real, true stories that would have connected our customers on a very, very, very deep level to the origin of where the chocolate comes from. We missed out on, this is my opinion, we missed out on a lot of brand loyalty. We missed out on a lot of word of mouth. We missed out on a lot of just brand building by shrouding it in mystery instead of connecting the people with the origin of where the chocolate comes from, which is what we do now, and it works way better.
Sounds to me, Adam, what you're saying is you limited the potential sales growth in the early days because you were shrouded in mystery, but potentially that's a good thing because you might not have been able to cope with the demand that was created by going down your path.
I think that's an excellent point, and I also think we may have actually staved off competition from coming in and beating us to this punch. I think there's a very good likelihood that the strategy worked, although it may have had an opportunity cost exactly along the lines of what Adam is saying. Sure.
Let me move the story along. We've discovered the bean. We've had it DNA tested. Your old man, he's got half his head shaved. He's heading out for the night. Gets a phone call from the professor going, "You've found something special here, guys." You go beauty. You establish relations with the local community. You realise that there is enough of this bean to create a proper business from. You then ship the dry beans to Switzerland, where it's turned into a world-class chocolate by Max Felchlin, one of the top chocolate manufacturers in the world. We're shooting for the stars pretty early on. It's not as if you're getting a whole lot of dough coming in, but clearly that was an important move to bring on someone of such note.
We lucked into that one too.
I just wanted to say, by the way, do we have like 6 hours to just give a thumbnail of the 10,000 problems you skipped over? No. Yes, that all that happened, and there was a robust discussion about where to make the chocolate. Part of that discussion, and Adam can expound on this, was buy our own machinery, take outside investment, make our own brand and our own factory, try to make it there at origin, try to make it in the U.S., try to use another factory in Peru. Adam can elaborate on what his side of the discussion looked like.
Brian was in Peru. I had a first row view of this one, and we actually were very, very close to making the totally wrong decision on this one. We were going to buy our own equipment and try to make this stuff. Brian actually sent a container of cocoa beans to Miami, and we had rented a space and purchased some machinery to try to make our own chocolate. At the very last minute, the guy who was going to sell us the machines decided not to sell them to us. And we had a network of people that we've been networking all this time before we even had a product to sell. And we started to put the word out, like, what are we going to do? Like, we've got this container of cacao sitting in Miami. We have nothing to do. We don't have a way to turn it into chocolate. And one of the guys said, "I've tasted this cacao. It's delicious. I want to introduce you to the guys at Max Felchlin."
Just a point of note there, Adam. Did the fellow who was going to sell you the chocolate making equipment do it because he had a better offer, or because he just thought you boys are going to create a problem for yourself and he was helping you out?
He thought he had a better business opportunity. Yeah.
And just a quick note, we've since sent some guys for him, and he's no longer with us. So, he crossed us once.
We rubbed him out. Yeah.
Absolutely. Cross us once and see what happens. This is just a warning to anyone in the audience. I mean,
we do, but Peruvian Jungle revenge.
That's all you need to say.
Fair game.
Yeah. You look your suppliers in the eyes and say, "You cross us, boys." 2 words: Peruvian Jungle.
That's right.
It's like concrete boots if you're the mafia.
Yeah. So my dad got in an airplane with this guy that we knew, who's a friend of ours, and went out to Felchlin with a sample of cocoa beans. And these guys in Felchlin, it's a 120-year-old Swiss chocolate making factory. They're one of the top 4 or 5 chocolate makers in the world. They see the best cocoa beans in the world.
The best of the best.
Did you just have to wave your DNA certificate in front of them?
They do, but they look at DNA. They do
But getting access to someone like that, why did they say yes to a couple of boys?
We had a friend who had been doing business with them for a long time.
We had someone expressing our bona fides, and there had been a sample batch made, which intrigued everybody, even though it was not a real product yet. But also, I had spent a couple of years and almost 100 tries of getting the. Chocolate is a stool made of 3 legs: the farmer and the tree, the genetic quality, the post-harvest processing, the fermentation, and the roast and conch of the chocolate. These beans were not only genetically superior and well-grown, they were also well-fermented and ready to be made into excellent chocolate when the story that Adam describes continues.
Yeah, so Dan showed up over there with the samples, and they've got this really sophisticated flavor lab where they taste cacao and decide, determine how they're going to make the chocolate. And that the head chocolate maker there, who's been working there for 50 years, basically pulled Dan aside and said, "This is the best cacao I've seen in 8 or 9 years." It's like, and we got to work with you. And they've got these old vintage machines that they only let a couple of origins per year work on. They agreed to let us use those machines. And so we were the only company they agreed to work with on a contract basis. Usually they buy cocoa beans and make their own chocolate and sell the chocolate. But we told them that we were dead set on making our own chocolate. We didn't want to sell cacao. We wanted to have chocolate made so that we could sell the chocolate. That's what we really had decided was going to be our.
Why?
We just thought the market was much broader if we could sell to restaurants and chocolatiers.
And if you've ever been in the business of selling a source product, a primary ingredient, if you add value to the product, there's always going to be a higher margin.
And of course, we were also had this pricing model with the cacao farmers that required us to go further down that value chain to make all the math work.
And to cut out and when we started this project, we did an analysis of the value chain that the farmers were originally selling into, and we identified it was an 8 or 9 step value chain, and we identified 4 that we could cut out by implementing a smarter model. But that required and spread the money that would have gone into those 4 intermediaries' pockets back to the farmers, for us, etc. But it required us to have a finished product, not a primary material at the cell end.
We started this whole project in 2008. We ended up going to see Felchlin beginning of 2008. We ended up going to see Felchlin like in the middle of 2010. And then our first client that we ever sold any chocolate to was a chain of Swiss bakeries.
Which came through Felchlin, is the lab in Switzerland.
Yeah, chain of Swiss bakeries.
Our same friend that introduced us to Felchlin also helped us rep the chocolate and the beans in Europe.
And that guy's still one of our biggest customers to this day. He's this chain of Swiss bakeries.
You've clearly landed on something special. I've tried your product. I've got a product it's sitting here. It's beautiful. How do you keep the foot on the brake while trying to go forward at 100 miles an hour? Because when you've got something special like this, sort of a unique position, they say there's no such thing as an original idea because everything's been discovered, but you've discovered something special and you are hustlers, you are entrepreneurs. You've got probably people knocking. You've got, the world's leading chocolate manufacturer going, you found something special. You've got the leading DNA tester of chocolate saying you've found something special. How do you not get ahead of yourself and just...
You just hit on it.
Yeah, okay, money.
Just the lack of capital.
Yeah, I mean, so we buy one type of cocoa bean and we're self-funded.
Exactly what you say. Our business partner has a lifelong aversion to taking outside capital. So we're self-funded, and that was the natural limitation on growing too fast.
And you're comfortable going along at let's call it a Peruvian pace as opposed to an American pace, which is beautiful. It still feels cottage industry in a way, which I think is really beautiful. We'd all love to create an empire of some sort, but it doesn't mean it has to be the biggest empire in the world. It just needs to be one that pays the bills and keeps us happy and brings joy.
Capital is one thing, but the thing that going all the way back to what you said in the podcasting world, this is called a callback, just so you know.
Hang on, just pause. I'm just going to write that down.
Just take a note, Tim.
Yeah, we've done 50 podcasts, Tim, so we know a thing or two.
Yeah, we know a thing or two. No, going back to what you said, there were plenty of trees for us to know that there was enough to make a project, but there aren't enough trees to grow unbelievably fast, uncontrollably fast. This is not a semi-annual crop that you can plant 2 or 3 times a year. This is a tree that takes 5 years to mature. If you want to increase your production, you have to have, and we don't own any land, you have to convince a farmer to invest 5 years waiting for cash income. So you can't increase the supplies overnight, and we didn't have an unlimited amount of capital. So those were natural breaks on any concept of unrestrained growth we might have.
So, Adam, we've now got a customer in Switzerland, a chain of bakeries. That's going beautifully.
So I had a sales job working for a tech startup, like in the interim, and I was selling software. So I took a bunch of sales training courses, and I became a pretty competent salesman. And my dad's all-time hustler, riverboat gambler. So we just started going to every conference. We started burning up the phones, and we just started to do what you have to do to build up a wholesale business from scratch, which is burn up the phone lines and close one customer at a time, make sure that you maintain high product quality, have a competitive price. And we did it. So from 2011 until 2000, and I'd say 2018 would be a good measuring point. So 7 years, just working on it. We ended up selling wholesale chocolate and cocoa beans in 40 countries.
100% wholesale.
100% wholesale, selling raw cacao to a movement that was happening in the United States and Europe, which is like a small batch craft chocolate industry. So they were willing to pay the prices that they would have to pay to make the economics work. And then also just restaurants, high-end restaurants, 5-star restaurants, chocolatiers,
including a core client of ours, which is in Australia, in Tasmania, who buys the chocolate, the Felchlin made chocolate from us.
What's the name of those guys? I think they're reaching out to me for an interview by absolute coincidence.
House of Anvers, Igor Van Gerwen.
Great guy. Great guy. He's been down to Peru and visited us. Yeah. So we were on Parts Unknown with Anthony Bourdain in 2013.
Okay, just to be clear, because it's such a great story, and I know we're missing Brian many parts of this, but it is only a 5.5 hour interview, not 6.
We'll start to economize.
Yeah. So we've got distribution. You're now hustling. You're ringing all these 5-star restaurants. You're getting clientele. You're wholesaling. You don't have e-commerce at this point. You don't have any retail exposure. Okay. Along comes Anthony Bourdain with No Reservations, the late Anthony Bourdain.
And this is earlier on. This is around 2013.
And how did that come about? I've watched the segment. I thought, and I've read one of your comments in your podcast where you felt a bit let down by how they covered it. They almost seemed to own the idea as opposed to you guys owning the idea. But anyway, how did it come about?
It's a complex. To keep it as short as possible, one of our chocolate clients was a friend and business colleague of Bourdain's best friend, Eric Repair, a restaurateur from New York in Manhattan.
Yes, the French guy.
The French guy, that's right, a wonderful person. And they started investigating the possibility of doing a collaboration with that chocolate maker. And Bourdain had apparently for years been thinking about doing something branded in the chocolate world, which was a particular passion of his, but had never done it. And it all came together that they decided to investigate using our chocolate and that chocolatier making a special confection out of it. And they decided to do it. And that was the genesis of the Good and Evil bar.
What do you mean? You'll have to explain the Good and Evil bar.
This was a chocolate bar that was made by Cacao Chocolate in Pennsylvania. Chris Curtin is the chocolatier we're referring to, a client, nice guy, good friend of ours. He was a friend of Eric Repair, and Eric Repair brought Bourdain in, and they made a chocolate bar called the Good and Evil bar, which was a special part of our harvest, the first harvest beans, which have a sort of a special flavor profile. And they put nibs or roasted and shelled cacao beans in this bar, and then befitting somebody of Bourdain and Repair's stature, they also put the opposite of our packaging, which you showed a minute ago, extremely fancy high-end packaging, extremely fancy high-end marketing, and an extremely fancy high-end price. Does that sum it up pretty well, Adam?
Yeah, and there was a little bit of a clamor against their price because people didn't like the idea of the spread between how much that was getting charged for the bar and what they presumed the cacao farmers were getting paid.
That's right. There was a noise about whether the farmers were receiving a just proportion of the price because the bar was truly high priced.
Yeah, and so the impetus, and they mentioned it in the show, the impetus was to go for Anthony Bourdain himself to go see if these cacao farmers were actually being exploited or not. And they went down there and shot it, and there's all kinds of stuff that happened behind the scenes. But people, because we had some presence in the industry already, understood that it was us. And so that's kind of in that 2011 to 2018 period where we grew, and that kind of really helped propel us along.
The most incredible thing happened there. None of us from our company were on camera in that. They filmed me and they mic'd me, and our company was never mentioned, nor was the location ever mentioned. We contracted with them for secrecy, but because they went to our area and because they worked with the farmer that we are famous for working for, everybody in the industry immediately understood exactly where they were and who they were working with. And even though we were never mentioned nor shown on camera, we received an absolutely massive burst of interest and an increase in our business.
Well, I suppose at that point you are dealing with Bourdain's fan club of restaurateurs and chefs. So
and repair. And repairs, yeah, of course. So yeah, I get that. Okay,
he's a towering figure in the industry. Yeah.
Who was the white guy in the No Reservations segment? There was a guy. I thought that's not your dad. It wasn't Dan.
That was Chris Curtin, the chocolatier from Eclat Chocolate in Pennsylvania, who collaborated on the Good and Evil bar.
Okay, so we're going along now. We've got no reservations. You're wholesaling beautifully. Your name's growing in the sort of 5-star restaurant area, which is where you want to position yourself as a premium chocolate. You then at some point decide an e-commerce play to consumers would be a good idea. Why?
Well, before you get into that, Adam, I just want to say, go on the record. I was against it from the beginning, and I just want to put that out there. I thought it was a terrible idea.
I keep using this 2018 now. Like I mentioned 2018 a few times. So basically, there was a little bubble in the craft bean to bar market where there was an oversupply of raw, like fine flavored raw cacao on the market, and people stopped buying from. There was just too many options. There was too much supply, and basically in 2018, I told Dan and Brian we should start going direct to consumer. It's been like the economics are beautiful. We can give these customers a wholesale price for this world-class chocolate. And Dan and Brian at that point said, we're going to be competing with our wholesale restaurant clients. It's bad.
Terrible.
It's a bad idea. So we didn't do that. We struggled through this bubble from 2018 to 2020. I mean, we stayed alive and it was fine. And then in 2020, when the pandemic hit, then it really got bad. Because we're selling to restaurants and chocolatiers who have retail-facing businesses, and we're still buying cacao. Like we've been increasing the amount of cacao we're buying this whole time, just money out,
which is politically important there in the jungle and to the farmers.
Yeah, and so we're sitting on all this chocolate come 2020, and we're not getting the regular purchase orders that we would get. So we're 9, 10, somewhere between 10 and 12 years into this thing. And we fought and we struggled and we built a good business, and now it looks like it's pretty much going to all come crashing down. And I said, luckily we had the pivot on the shelf. I said, guys, remember that e-commerce, like the direct to consumer thing we were talking about? We have to do it right now. Otherwise we're going to get washed out. And they agreed.
And in my wisdom, I said, I don't know, Adam. It seems really risky to me, which is why I call Adam a visionary, because because I'm an ops guy and I can come up with 1,000, I can solve most problems, but I can come up with 1,000 reasons why we should avoid the problem in the first place. Whereas Adam is a sales and visionary guy, and he has the big picture, and he knows that if he drags me kicking and screaming into his vision, I'll solve the problems and get it done.
But what's important, Brian, is what we've learned here is never say yes to Adam's ideas immediately.
Yeah, give it 2 years.
That's right. Hold out for a better deal. Hold out for a better deal. That's right. It's just the art of the deal. It's just the art of the deal.
So what I was looking at, I was looking at our price per ounce versus the price per ounce in the grocery store. And I was looking, I'm going like pretty much the same price per ounce, except for our chocolate's so much better. Only thing is we got to sell it as 1.1 pound blocks. Because once you start molding it and repackaging and stuff. So it's a format change. Right, so we're coming to the market also with like a format that nobody else is selling in, and
including the packaging,
just everything.
It's a simple food grade Ziploc bag. In the chocolate industry, this is typically the packaging represents 30-40% of the cost of a bar. And they're works of art. They're works of art that are incredibly expensive to purchase, print, assemble, package, ship there. And we decided to not do any of that.
So we hired a website designer for like $1,000, and she built us a Shopify store. And then I took an online course on how to run Facebook and Instagram ads and how to do email marketing. And we started testing ads, and we created an ad that was a winning ad that we were able to just we just scaled.
Out of interest, you tested a number of ads. What was the messaging that actually...
The ad that launched us, that really kicked us off, one of the things we do is we have our cacao farm partners separate out rotten cacao on their farm.
Almost nobody else does this. And we do it at 2 stages, which nobody else does.
So Brian's an extremely meticulous person. That's why the chocolate is so good, because of how meticulous Brian is. And I gave one example in this Facebook ad. I said, take a look at this picture. And then it's a quick picture. It's like beautiful, white, clean cacao, and then a bucket filled with rotten cacao. And I said, almost every other chocolate company in the world mixes these two together. We're one of the only ones that doesn't. And then I got into our pitch about the rare cacao and how you can get this world-class chocolate for the same price. And it was a beautiful thing.
Who would have thought messaging around production, particularly in regards to chocolate, would have resonated with your potential audience? I mean, showing a bucket of rotten cacao alone just sounds disgusting. I can't imagine what it looks like.
Yeah, and I spent hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars on that Facebook ad. and it basically, and I've spent many hundreds of thousands on other ads that I've been able to develop that have also been winner. And the biggest winners are production centric. And that's what I'm talking about.
People are fascinated by the process because they know what a bar of chocolate looks like, and they know about tasting it, but most people are enthralled to learn about what goes, because they don't know.
I'm always interested in business owners, how well they know their potential buyers and their ideal customers. And, when you think about chocolate generally, it's just fun. It's confectionery. It's consumed by everyone. Kids love it. But you're a little bit different to that. It's more of a connoisseur. It's more wine and coffee than it is confectionery, right?
What we're doing is we're taking something that is for aficionados, and we're pushing the messaging out on the mass market. We could do it because of the price. So you were able to take this gourmet product, but just because of the way our supply chain is set up, and the fact that we're selling 1.1 pound blocks, and we do all, we don't sell through distributors. So we have this price that allows us to sell a really high quality item, and we can pitch it the same way you would pitch a 5-star meal. But when you get to the end, right, when you get to the price, it's like, by the way, you can get all this for a price that's the same as what you're already paying for the fun confectionery stuff. So why not get the best thing that you can get, but it doesn't cost more?
And also, Adam made a brilliant insight, and Dan was a part of this too, which is we spent the first however many years selling into the ultra high end, the ultra fine segment of the market, which is a tiny fraction of the industry. But Adam realized and understood that there are vastly millions and millions of more potential customers who are kind of adjacent to that, but haven't had the opportunity to be exposed to something that's really great. They might be interested. They might not even know they're interested, but there's such a huge segment of the market that we just weren't marketing to. Adam was able to discern that he could market to those people that were willing to go there, but had never gone there before.
It must have been very tempting though. So what I'm hearing is your price point is not dissimilar to your everyday chocolate bar. Yet the experience and what you're...
If you bought it in a half kilo block.
If you buy it in half kilo blocks. Pricing, and I had the pricing lady, she's actually based in Switzerland, believe it or not. I had her on the show about 6 months ago, Janine Liston. And we went through all parts of pricing strategy. And one of the obvious ones is this weird consumer behavior, which says the higher the price, the better the product must be in our minds. It's illogical thinking, but perceptions are reality. You must be very tempted to put a much higher price on it because your margin is going to increase exponentially, and potentially the perception of your product will also increase.
Yeah, but the size of the market shrinks. The size of the market shrinks when you do that.
And Adam spent 10 years. Adam spent 10 years out there trying to sell a product that was at the very high end of the market, and had already Adam had already fought that battle and knew that was not the method, the way to go.
And like we were talking about with authenticity, like I mentioned with authenticity, we were selling into that high end market by necessity because we had to make the model work. But by nature, me and Brian are not 5-star restaurant guys. And in fact...
And we're not even foodies.
I consider myself to be like a borderline foodie, but I am a real dyed-in-the-wool chocoholic.
Boys, with respect, you're not 5-star guys whatsoever.
Yeah, we're not.
Nor am I.
and you
hey, but look. So when Anthony Bourdain was filming Parts Unknown, he had a conversation with Brian because they went out and ate lunch in a cacao farm, in a farmhouse, which is as rustic as it can be. But the food is phenomenal because the ingredients are fresh. The women have been cooking these meals for 20 years, right? So just because you're not perceived as a 5-star person doesn't mean the quality of your offering is not extremely high. So that's what I like. I like the idea that just a regular person who's got good taste, but doesn't want to go spend $1 million eating at a fancy restaurant, can get something of high quality. And I believe that the mass market people will appreciate that if you can make the price make sense. And I'm passionate about that.
And it's not a gimmick. There's no gold flake on this. It's just
good chocolate. I mean, it's just really good chocolate at a fair price. And
good on you. Good on you. You're not trying to bleed the market.
The e-commerce worked. We did that for 2 years. And it was working. It was great. It was growing. We've got tens and tens of thousands of customers here in the United States who...
Can I tell one quick story about that, Adam? So this is how it works with us, and probably a lot of your listeners will relate to this. Adam, sales visionary. He's flogging it. He can sell, if he had an unlimited budget for online ads, he can sell an unlimited amount of chocolate. The fulfillment was starting from the counter in Adam's kitchen. His wife was doing it. And I went over, when we decided we were going to dip our toe in this, I went over and saw how she was fulfilling it. And the ops guy in me was crushed and horrified. And I said, absolutely not. It can't be. No. And so just like he knew I would, and just like all good visionary salespeople assume the ops guy will do, I immediately said, oh, no, I knew nothing about online fulfillment, like literally nothing. And I didn't go study a bunch of stuff like Adam did, but I knew that you had to have some kind of an assembly line because we had an assembly line to make the beans. So I just put together an assembly line and we started fulfilling in a more rational way, and all of a sudden it just started to grow. And as Adam saw that the volume could grow, he started selling more ads, and all of a sudden we realized, yeah, this can be. Adam was right. I just want to go out there and say, for the record, Adam was right, and I was wrong.
There you go, bro. There you go, bro.
And the visionaries out there, don't let the ops guy bring your vision down. He'll catch up. The ops person will catch up with you.
I've got to say though, one of you've been blessed with a great partnership. You know,
That's
clearly, Dan is this great visionary. That's trickled down into Adam. Brian, you've got this. So Adam's got the visionary, the sales, the chutzpah to go and just make things work from a marketing and sales point of view. Brian, you've got this wonderful operational instinct. You see a problem and can see a solution immediately. I mean, between the two of you, it's just a wonderful bit of magic that you've been blessed with.
It's a blessing. It absolutely is a blessing.
The online store's now operational, and people can go to that at Fortunato. I'll put a link in the show notes, fortunatochocolate.com, and you can buy it there. I don't know, you ship me some. Do you ship globally?
Not yet. There's so customs wise and transport time wise and crossing the hot ocean and just the cost of it. It's really, really tough to ship overseas for our product. And just for customs reasons, we're not even really shipping to Canada right now. We can overcome it, but we're taking things one step at a time.
So then you make a decision in 2020 to open 2 retail outlets, which is pretty fascinating. Yeah, it's interesting, you know, when e-commerce came along all those years ago, retail was dead. And then every now and then I speak to an e-commerce success story, and half of them will say, no, we're never going to have a retail bricks and mortar presence. Others say, absolutely, we're going to, because it sort of credentializes who we are in a solid physical way, and you know that we make it a flagship store and a destination. I spoke to one e-commerce business out of Byron Bay in Australia where it's called Spell and the Gypsy Collective, and it's a very successful fashion online store. They went and created 1 retail outlet in their hometown, and it's so beautiful and so good that people from all around the world actually make a point to go there when they're in Australia, if they love this brand. What was your thinking behind creating not 1 but 2 retail outlets?
Go ahead, Adam. This was all your impetus.
Yeah. So we opened up the first one in November 2021 in Issaquah, where we live. Yeah, and it's outside 20 minutes,
about 15 minutes east of Seattle.
So we opened up the first one with really no idea, no concept, but I just could see we were getting so much positive feedback from our e-commerce customers, and it was a connection that we had never had before from being wholesalers. And I was just blown away by it. I mean, I don't know, I was moved by it because we've been working on it for so long. We never had really known who the people were who were eating our chocolate because we were one step removed. I just found it very touching, and I thought it would be awesome to be able to meet people in our neighborhood who could come and eat chocolate and have little kids come in. And so we made a decision to give.
Adam's a really lonely person. I mean, if it's not coming across to everybody, Adam's a really lonely guy. But
it's a very emotional decision so far, Adam. Was there? Did you do the numbers, or you just thought
it was a hunch?
A hunch.
It was, you know what? I saw a place that was for rent, and we already needed a bigger fulfillment. We needed a bigger e-commerce fulfillment place. And I saw a place that was like twice as big as what we needed, but I thought we could build a little retail joint in there. And again, Brian and Dan thought it was outrageous.
Oh, I was completely against it. But there was another problem that he's skipping over, which is it's very difficult to ship chocolate in the summer. It melts when you ship it. to ship it, and so you have to use incredibly anti-ecological shipping materials. It's expensive. It doesn't always work. You can't unless you use the most incredibly expensive overnight air shipping. Even gel packs don't really protect chocolate if you're shipping to Texas in July. You just can't do it. And so we had to find a way to make our business less seasonal. And so by having a store where people can come and buy it, we have the opportunity to sell in what had been our fulfillment off season, and that was another part. That was part of the financial calculus, in addition to the emotional stuff that Adam's talked about.
So we opened that up, and I started just walking around the neighborhood, handing out flyers, letting people know we had free hot chocolate and stuff in there, and the retail store started
in a cacao pot costume,
just making a spectacle out there, and the retail store started doing really well, and just. One of the women who worked for us, her husband owned a cake business. He made cakes. And when we told them what we were doing and that we only had, basically we just opened it with three products. So it was this big empty room with stacks of these just 1 pound blocks. It was the most austere chocolate. It was not fun at all. But the chocolate was
again,
good.
A reference that all Australians are going to really relate to. Half kilo.
Yeah, half kilo bars. So our employee's husband heard what we were doing, and he just felt really bad for us that we didn't have any products. And he said, "Hey man, if you just buy me some tables and like a few little pieces of equipment, I'll start making some stuff for you." And that guy's our chocolatier, Javier Valencia. And he came in.
He's brilliant.
And so he came in and started making all these products. We have like 100 products now. And we built a kitchen for him. And then based on the demand.
You say you have 100 products.
We only have a certain amount online, but in the stores we have even more.
Wow.
We're approaching 100 SKUs. I'd say we probably have 80 SKUs now.
Anything we put online, we have to be able to produce enough for 40,000 people to buy it, basically. So a lot of our products.
And keep in mind, our entire production facility, which is also our warehouse and our fulfillment center, is maybe a couple hundred square meters. Probably.
It's a small kitchen. Yeah. But we just built the kitchen like 6 months ago. So we're making all these products now. We're putting one new product online per week. And we've been able to stick with that. So
why would you do that? What it just seems so many SKUs, 80 to heading to 100 SKUs, putting on one new SKU a week. Is there not some kind of 80-20 rule or 90-10 rule that applies where the majority of people just want the half kilo chocolate bar or similar? There
is, from a business standpoint, we get to mix the chocolate with other ingredients by doing it this way. Whereas the chocolate has an 8-month supply chain. Right, so if we want to get more chocolate, we have to wait a really long time to get sugar to make caramel or to get like mint oil to make mint patties. We can dilute the amount of chocolate that we're actually using and mix it with other ingredients, and it lets us turn over our cash a lot more quickly.
It gives people some more reason to come to try new flavors. It gives people a sense of adventure and exploration when they find new products in the store.
And from a revenue growth standpoint, it triples the amount of volume we can do because we're selling other stuff besides cocoa beans.
Pretty fascinating because you've opened up 2 stores in areas, one close to home. I guess they're both close to home, but you sort of make the assumption that your ideal customer is local, whereas they're probably not. They're probably somewhere else in the States but yeah, so the decision to open 2 retail outlets locally is kind of interesting.
We both hate commuting.
It's all about you guys, not about the customer.
One's mixed use, right? So it's a really small retail space with a kitchen and an e-commerce fulfillment. But I think what you're creating with these 2 different spaces, because the kitchen is an open kitchen. So if someone comes to Issaquah to do the Fortunato Chocolate thing, they can come to the retail store and meet me and Brian or whatever. And then they can also go over to the factory and see where it's made. So at least here in Issaquah, I think if someone has driven 40 minutes to come see the Fortunato Chocolate World Headquarters, it gives them a second thing to go check out. But the pure retail play, it's just a 600 square foot shop with all of our products in there. And it's a really great little business.
Another timely reference for people who don't understand what feet are. That would be probably about 40 square meters. We're blessed to live in a prosperous, tech-heavy suburb of east of Seattle, near the world headquarters of Amazon, Microsoft, Costco. We're in a prosperous place that has also a very, very robust local market. Yes.
I've not interviewed a business owner of recent times that have had a podcast, or if they have, they've dropped it out pretty quickly, 5 to 10 episodes. You boys have got a podcast called The Chocolate Brothers, The Chocolate Bros, and you've got 50 or so episodes under your belt. Why did you start it, and what's it done for business?
I think like most things,
nothing, and I'm not sure.
Please don't say that.
You asked why we're
nothing, and I can't remember.
You asked why we're putting up so many SKUs, and the true answer, the authentic answer, is that
our podcast career creator.
No, the authentic answer is the guy who works for us is like a genius, and he has to be creative, and we want him to be, because that's part of what makes our business fun. Is we have this guy who gets to create new stuff all the time. I think me and Brian did it just because we're brothers and we like to laugh, and we thought it would be funny, but we gave it up because just there was other more pressing things. But people did like it. Our regular customers listened to it and gave us feedback. They would like us to pick it back up. It did.
Yeah, and we would like to pick it back up. We have a ton of fun doing it, but it's a time constraint. Yeah, after we get out of our busy season, which ends on Mother's Day, hopefully over the summer we'll bang out some new episodes. There's a lot to talk about.
Where's the time? If I could just challenge you on that, because I'd love to see you bring it back. I mean, the last episode was about a year ago from memory, looking at your podcasting account. Really, you know what you're doing. You pick a theme. You're not short of words.
Especially Adam, you can't shut this guy up.
You sit down for 30 minutes, an hour, however long a particular episode's going to go for. You don't really need to plan it because, again, you know your stuff. You're not interviewing anyone. There's no research required. You send it off to an editor and get it done and posted, and you're sort of done. And to me, it seems like a very cheap spoke on your marketing wheel, and one that, you never know what it could bring. It could bring media attention. It could bring sales. It could bring great staff opportunities. Who knows?
I think you're right. You're right. We should get back to doing it. You're right.
Thank you.
Yeah.
We're chastened in the face of your unassailable.
Yeah, no, you're right.
wisdom,
we should get back to it, and we really liked it.
Adam, before we get off this call, Adam, could we schedule our next? Can we calendar?
Yeah, hold on. Hey, Tim, can we do this on the air? Do you mind? Brian, get up your calendar.
You could take this interview and repurpose it and say, "Hey, listen, we're back."
Hey, we were doing it.
Wait, this isn't an episode of the Chocolate Bros? That's exactly what I thought it was. Aren't we interviewing this Australian guy?
Taking the video, and I had a kid cutting it up into like 1 minute segments, because we had the video. So we were putting it up on iTunes, and then I had this kid posting segments on LinkedIn and stuff. I mean, it was a good way to create content.
Last question. What's been the impact on the local Peruvian community for you? Now, you're paying them above the odds. Have you seen a wonderful change in their economic circumstances?
So anytime you try to do something, it's not philanthropic. We're a business. We're a for-profit business, but we want to operate justly in this world, and we want to help our dear friends in the jungle do better, because the whole system is set up for poor farmers in the tropical regions to be in extreme poverty for life. And that's the way the system is set up. And we've wanted to change that paradigm. And every day I get up and think, have I even done anything? Have I accomplished anything? Because you put your light out into the world and you hope it shines on people, and you're never going to feel satisfied that you've achieved what you set out to do. A lot of farmers have been able to pave their houses and install indoor plumbing and move away from wood burning stoves, which can be really harmful to the wives and the daughters. Buy motorcycles, pay for healthcare, get school supplies, and yet many of them are still living in mud brick houses in the middle of nowhere. And do they have enough resources, or are their families thriving? I ask myself that question all the time. I'll never think that I've done enough, Tim, but I guess you have to value the effort more than the result when you want to help people. And we have had results. If I'm being fair, I'll humbly say that we've had some good results for the farmers, but I'll never be satisfied that we've done enough.
Yeah, because no matter what, they still live in a very, very remote place, just geographically. The government hasn't built the infrastructure out to that place. So even if people have more money, they still got to drive 4 or 5 hours to the local big city to spend the money.
Just give me a laugh, Brian. On a typical business trip, you fly out of Seattle, you're heading to head office in the mountains of Peru. What does that look like? I imagine the plane goes from a rather large one to a rather small one.
So, I mean, at least they built an airport. So for the first for the first 10 years, there was no airport or bridge over the river. So it was from where I lived in the Andean highlands, I had to take an overnight bus down to the coast and then connect to another bus that went back up through a different high mountain pass and then down into the jungle valley, and then transfer to a combi, which is a car or a van that doesn't leave until it's full of people, and go out until we came to the river and then cross the river on a ferry or a longboat. And then that was the little town we had our thing in. And then we had a fleet of motorcycles where we would go out to the various little villages, literally villages, where we would pick up the cacao and bring it back. It's many hundreds of times I would look around and ask myself, how in the world did I end up here? And what am I exactly doing here? I never could
for 10 years, man.
Get my handle
Brian
on
did that for 10 years. 10 years making that
10 years
making that bus trip back and forth twice a month. Over the mountain, down the mountains,
At least.
10 years.
Yes.
I hope you get frequent combi points, Brian, because you'd have a few in the bank by now.
Absolutely. I don't think I've paid for a combi trip in some years, actually.
Boys, it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you. It's one of the longer interviews I've done, but for good reason, because you've got a great story to tell and you are passionate. I don't care, even though you gave us a 7.5 out of 10 at the top of this chat, Brian. I know
right,
it's a 10.
It's a 10.
You just, you don't want things to be too perfect. FortunatoChocolate.com, for those lucky enough to live in the United States, is where you can go and buy it. If you're really good and email them and say you heard them on the Small Business Big Marketing Show, they're probably going to post you some chocolate. I don't know. I don't want to put words into their mouth, but take care of it.
Yeah, Brian will take care of that. You'll take care of that, right, Brian?
Yeah, just have info at FortunatoChocolate.com or Brian at FortunatoChocolate.com. Sure, drop me a line. We'll figure something out.
Good on you, boys. Best of luck in the future.
I do. Amen.
Thank you, Tim.
Well, there you go, team. The Fortunato Chocolate brothers, Adam and Brian. Brilliant. How much fun was that? What an adventure those guys are having. Part of the reason I do what I do is to find stories like that. I just love it. Like I said in my intro, you simply cannot write this stuff. Tell me what you loved or didn't love about that chat. I would seriously love to hear from you. Call me on 0480 015 150. Let me know your thoughts. Maybe you want to give a little bit of gratuitous exposure to your own business. Tell me what marketing's working for you. Tell me what you thought of those guys' business adventure.
Hey Timbo, Chris Sullivan here again. I've just left a message, about what I've picked out that's been the best for me with the podcast over the last 7 years. On a personal note, I've just realised that you're a marketing absolute wizard. So what happens is people leave you a message and then you send them back a text saying, hey, be sure to listen out for it because we could play it. Now, that means that everyone who leaves you a message will definitely listen to each podcast episode forthcoming because they want to hear themselves on the podcast. That's great. That is great marketing. That helps people, or helps you, to get people listening to your podcast, listening to your sponsors, and therefore creating revenue. You're a bloody wizard, mate. You're a bloody wizard. So I just had a bit of a brain fart there, so I just wanted to let you know I'm onto you, and I love it. I love it. In addition, mate, I know you might not have been well over the last little while. You might have had some time out where you needed a bit of a break, and it was sad to hear, but I was so relieved that you came back and you actually spoke about it, and I hope things are on the mend for you. I've been in that spot before. It's not very nice. But by all means, as most people would have said, if there's anything that I can do, be sure to let me know. I wish you all the best, mate. You've been a great support since before I started the business. So I look forward to continuing our little, let's call it a relationship. States away, but together, always in marketing and business. Thanks, Timbo. You do a great job, and I really do appreciate all the stuff you put out to us. Good on you, mate.
Oh, Chris, thank you, brother. I think it's brotherhood more than relationship. Can we agree on that? You with me? And Chris, thank you for your care, mate. Yeah, I did have a bit of a tough time a few months ago now. Just needed to take the foot off the pedal, smell the roses. Listeners know I suffer from that bloody condition anxiety, that human condition anxiety, which sometimes gets the better of me, and I just need to sort of take a big deep breath, which I'm not very good at. Anyway, we got there. And I appreciate whoever you are out there hanging around and listening to my show continually like Chris does. I really appreciate that. And yes, Chris, I am a marketing wizard. Well, at least I'll take the moniker of marketing wizard, you know? Just trying to do the best, mate, with what I've got. Sometimes it creates magic. Sometimes it creates mud. You with me? Anyway, really appreciate your words and your support, Chris. Everyone else, be like Chris and call me on 0480 015 150. Put that in your phone under Timbo. Call me and leave me a message. Righto, it's time for you to take action on what you have learnt, because ideas remain exactly that without action. You with me? If you'd like to support the work I do for small businesses and want even more of me, then check out my exclusive business owner membership over at Patreon, Patreon, that's an N for Nelly, .com/marketing podcast. Membership starts at $8.50 and they're all tax deductible dollars. You got to love that. Patreon.com/marketing podcast. Next week, you and I catch up with the fitness industry's employer of the year, Scott Hunt of Fitness Enhancement and Fit Your Ability. It's Scott's second time on this podcast. The first time he shared his extreme approach to customer service. This time around, he shares how his business has become the number one provider in Australia of fitness services to those with a disability. So if the idea of appealing to that niche, those with a disability, appeals, then you are going to love what Scott shares. If you enjoyed today's episode or any episode you listen to, please hit the subscribe button on your podcast app where you'll find 624 more chats with successful business founders. Big thanks to Alex Amster for stitching the marketing gold together, and to our in-house muso, Lockie Doley, for all the sounds and songs that you hear during the show. Most importantly, a really big thanks to you for tuning in. Your time is so appreciated. Thank you. May your marketing be the best marketing. Bye for now.